Trinity College. We have a few minutes left. Jonathan Alter, what are your thoughts?
I thought this honestly was one of the least successful speeches I've seen Barack Obama give in several years. It was long-winded. He had a good argument to make, and at the beginning of the speech he seemed to be making it in a fairly compelling way, but then he lost the thread, and the speech was way too long, and I think he lost his audience by the end.
54-minute speech.
Been here because, again, the clock is ticking, and that leads to a question about this monstrous federal deficit. Is it a problem? Is it a threat to the future of America's children, or is it not a problem? Senator Obama?
I think it's an enormous problem.
And what are you going to do specifically to cut it or to raise, either to stop spending or to raise revenues?
I think it is an enormous problem. This has been the most fiscally irresponsible administration in certainly my memory. We have gone from trillion-dollar surpluses to trillion-dollar deficits in the blink of an eye. Not all of those costs are the fault of the administration. Obviously, 9/11 occurred and the decline in the economy. But what is also true is that it was aided and abetted by a set of fiscal policies that I think were on the wrong course. We can.
Your agenda has been my agenda in the United States Senate. Before debating health care, I talked to Andy Stern and SEIU members. Before immigration debates took place in Washington, I talked with Alcia Medina and SEIU members. Before the EFCA, I talked to SEIU. So we've worked together over these last few years, and I'm proud of what we've done. I'm just not satisfied, because I know how much more we could accomplish as partners in an Obama administration. Just imagine what we could do together. Just imagine what we could do together. Imagine having a president whose life work was your work. We have a lot of good friends of labor who are running in this election. I admire all of them. But the question I do want SEIU to ask yourselves is not who's talking about your agenda, but who can change our politics in Washington so we can actually make your agenda a reality. And I believe I can do that.
As too many of our friends and neighbors, they're still hurting because of this crisis. And they see what's going on in Washington and they don't like it, and so there's just a frustration level there.
As our interest payments rise, our obligations come due, confidence in our economy erodes, and our children and our grandchildren are unable to pursue their dreams because they're saddled with our debts. And that's why today I'm pledging to cut the deficit we inherited by half by the end of my first term in office. Now, this will not be easy. It will require us to make difficult decisions and face challenges we've long neglected. But I refuse to leave our children with a debt that they cannot repay. And that means taking responsibility right now, in this administration, for getting our spending under control.
For the first 42 presidents, number 43 added $4 trillion by his lonesome, so that we now have over $9 trillion of debt that we are going to have to pay back. $30,000 for every man, woman, and child. That's irresponsible. It's unpatriotic.
$1 trillion, that's a big number. By the way, $1 trillion, Jenna, is $1 million. So there are a lot of zeros. 12 zeros in a trillion. 13 zeros in 10 trillion. Enormous numbers, and it's so depressing because they can't even get the first $1 trillion of cut.
And the problem for the president is he is the most strident, I think, on his greatest failure. For the president to lecture Republicans, particularly Paul Ryan, on leadership and responsibility on issues, on fiscal issues and entitlement reform and budgets, when he can't, as you asked Jay Carney about in your interview earlier, he can't even gently nudge Senate Democrats to pass a budget with 51 votes, which they could do tomorrow if there were the political will. The president hasn't been serious about this since the beginning of his presidency.
Obama and the Senate Democrats have proposed nothing. Look, the former CBO director, Douglas Holtz-Eakin, points out that average spending for the federal government over the last 50 years has been slightly over 20% of the economy every year. What is the average spending in the Ryan budget over the next decade? Exactly that, slightly over 20%. Obama is the one who's been radical. The 5% of the economy that he's spending out of Washington is the highest since the Second World War. He's the one who's been radical with trillion-dollar deficits. We've never had one in American history. He's now had 4 in a row. He's now increased our debt by $5 trillion in one term. Radical, unprecedented. That is radical.
If you look at what the president will have done by the end of his first term, from inauguration to the end of his first term, he will, in all likelihood, have increased the debt, the national debt, by the same as all of the previous presidents to this point. That is radical.
I will be held accountable. I've got 4 years. If I don't have this done in 3 years, then there's going to be a one-term proposition.
The Democrats are saying something like this: don't go back in reverse. Give us 2 more years. If it doesn't work, you have another election in just 2 years. You can vote us all out then.
Of course the economy isn't where it needs to be. Of course we have a lot more work to do. Everybody knows that.